He's Dieter Kurtenbach. I'm Cyrus Saatsaz. That was a disastrous game. Dieter, I found a silver lining in all of this. I don't know if you
Okay.
saw the same thing. Maybe not. It was a
Okay.
disaster. 28-point losses are not something you go home happy about. But I found something. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. But
Wonderful.
are you ready to
Wonderful.
go, sir?
Because
Yeah.
let me tell you, I didn't. So I'm all ears on this one.
We'll get into it. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. Today's show is brought to you by NBA Top Shot. NBA Top Shot is the future of being an NBA fan. Own officially licensed rare NFTs of the greatest moments from NBA history. Sign up today at lockedon.nbatopshot.com. And Dieter Kurtenbach's got some to sell you if you want, especially an Andrew Wiggins one, which sounds very appealing.
Not after last night. I feel like I have to lower my price after last night. Yeah, if you want my top shots, let me know. Happy to sell them.
I guess give us your recap of last night. I'm glad you brought up Wiggins because that's a train wreck in the making. It seems.
Let me. This is a little bit.
Jump in, please.
Here's my belief of last night. That's what I felt.
That's great for the podcast, especially. Yes,
absolute joke. I don't have anything other than this team sure does believe in itself if it thinks it can turn all this around by the time the playoffs start. And if they think that taking it one step further, Andre Igoudala saying, we're going to have to figure some stuff out in the playoffs too. Mm-hmm. They got a lot of confidence in themselves if they think that they can get all this figured out inside a 7-game series as well. This is a bad basketball team. Full stop. They don't stop anybody. They don't score at a high enough clip to make that a non-viable process. Like, this is, I get it. They had the B team last night. Mm-hmm. Totally understanding. They were going to lose to Memphis no matter what. The manner in which they lost to Memphis, not exactly the Miami game from last week. Not even close. And I have very little faith in this team. Right now, the only logical, well, it's not logical, it's the exact opposite. The only way that I could say, hey, this team has a shot is Magic. Like just Warriors playoff experience devil magic. That's about all they got going for them. Because I believe they absolutely have that. But this team, let's get into Wiggins here for a second.
Yeah, please, because that is a glaring negative.
What did you think?
Awful. I mean, we saw a couple of good games, and then I was actually starting to get encouraged over this last week or so, and then 29 minutes of play last night, if I have the right score box, I do. 10 points in 29 minutes, 0 for 5 from 3. It's so weird how he's Jekyll and Hyde with his 3. Like when he's making them, they look good, and when he's missing them, you could hear the clank of the rim if you're in another room. And that game's on TV.
Shot. It's a very flat shot. I mean, it's not that surprising that it's not that it doesn't play all that well. I mean, when it's going, it's because it's almost like an archer shooting an arrow. It's like you gotta get that bullseye, otherwise that thing's gonna be flopping around. He's not that good of a basketball player. He's a great athlete, but he's just not that good of a basketball player. And the worst part about it for me was that was a game where there was no encumbrance whatsoever. There was nothing to say, Andrew, put your ass in somebody and do those 17-foot turnaround jumpers or do your little 9-foot, baseline moves. Like, do whatever the hell you want because we're going to lose this game anyway. So feel free to explore the space. He explored it. I mean, even in an operation where they say, Andrew, do whatever you want, he looked empty. He just looked like he didn't want to be there. And that's not good at all. It's really bad. And having to count on that guy, maybe there's a game, maybe there's 2, maybe there's 3. but having to count on that guy throughout multiple playoff series, which of course sounds laughable at this juncture, that concept in and of itself has always been laughable. Like, this is just not a reliable basketball player. And say what you will about Harry B, like, at least the dude was there. Dude was just consistent. He was there.
Yeah.
He missed some shots late, no doubt. He hit up on his ceiling, but I'd rather have with the Wiggins thing the higher floor and the lower ceiling than what the Warriors have now, which is a very low floor by the standards set by his contract and all-star appearance and all that. A pretty high ceiling, maybe not as high as we once thought, and just somebody who's more... I hate to say this because I don't think that he's not professional, but I've always described players who kind of just go out there and will give you a steady performance, will always find a way to affect the game in a positive realm. I've always referred to those guys as professional players. He might be a professional in every other aspect of the court, working hard, all that stuff, but he's not a very professional player on the floor. Like, he's just not, let's throw it to a different term. He's just not a winning player. Just not a winning player. And he has been, but you have to prove it over an 82-game schedule. And he's one of those guys who is supposed to play 82. He more or less has. He hasn't, but he more or less has. He's played a lot of games this year. But for him to not be consistent, but be consistently out there when his entire thing is, I'm going to be the third or fourth option and just be the consistent dude, like, that's just not, this is not a viable model. And I can't imagine a circumstance unless he goes off in the playoffs, unless he's just saving his energy for then, and I'll believe that when I see it. I just can't imagine a circumstance where the Warriors roll with this headache for another year. And it's not because he's not a good guy and not because he doesn't fit in the locker room, and it's not all these things. It's because he's just, even with all the positives that he has around him, he's just not a winning basketball player, and he doesn't have that eye of the tiger. And you can't trust a dude like that if you're trying to win something big. He's somebody who can help you win something mediocre, something small. There's only one championship trophy. If Andrew Wiggins, if they maybe do that in-season tournament, maybe Andrew Wiggins can go win that. That seems to be more his speed. But if you're trying to win the Larry O'Brien, he's not a guy who I think is going to help you. I hate to say that because it's a little bit of we're coming back on what we were saying earlier in the season, but new information, I guess it's also old information. You got to reevaluate what's going on. And, kind of that Warriors devil magic that I was talking about before, we sprinkle it. And you mentioned this the other day. Everybody wants to just automatically say, the Warriors, it's so great. Everything's fantastic. And anytime something works, it's the Warriors. How'd they pull that one off? Warriors did it again. And we have been in a way cursed by those 5 years because we believe so much that the Warriors are operating light years ahead or on another level or something. They figured out Andrew Wiggins. We all got fooled. And I got to do personally a little bit of reevaluation as to how I got fooled. I think everybody's got to do a little bit less of the same thing, just a little bit of reevaluation, how we all got duped. But this has been one hell of a con by Andrew Wiggins, and he'll take this con to some other town next year because I can't justify for the Warriors having him back in the fold at the cost that he's going to come at with the output that he provides. This is it's a bad deal for the Warriors right now, and adding on another deal on top of that, dangerous.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And in all honesty, man, that the salary figure that he brings to the table is the biggest negative. I mean,
totally.
I was after the game, I was on Twitter looking at some of the fan reactions, and the ESPN trade machine was being brought out in terms of who Wiggins could be traded for, and honestly, every single one of them, the players you bring back are mediocre at best, and I'm still nodding my head. Yeah, do it, bring it in, because you're right. Now, look, I think it would be a very unrealistic thing to say that there are any expectations for Andrew Wiggins if you don't have Stephen Curry. I mean, the Stephen Curry factor, all that happens when he's out is it reminds everyone else how important he is for this team, right? And this is why I was making the argument early in the season for MVP. I really thought until the last month and a half, 2 months, he still had a case simply because of his impact on the team, right? You see what happens when he's out. Draymond doesn't care about the game when Steph's not there, and he's out of shape anyways. Andrew Wiggins, who, again, we've said this before, as a third, even better, fourth best option, fine. The pressure's off him. Anything you get from him is great at that point. You can count on him for solid defense. But you're right. When Steph is out, and all of a sudden Andrew Wiggins is which in last night's game, for example, is your 1 or 2 option. I mean, Jordan Poole is, I think, actually clearly number 1.
Jordan Poole is the one.
He's a waste of space, and
that speaks to a lot that Jordan Poole is the one, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that 4-year, $80 million, and we talked about this yesterday that Connor Letourneau brought up, that is just going up by the day. That's now 4 years, what, $110 million? What?
Well, he might just get Wiggins' contract.
Very likely. Very likely. And I guess at some point during the offseason, we'll have a discussion about, what can the Warriors get back and sign a trade or just a trade? I mean, at this point.
Trade. Yeah, because he would have 1 year left on his deal. And so somebody would be interested in taking a guy in on the last year of a deal, free up some salary cap space, all that jazz. But this is not tenable as currently constructed. I'm looking at 5-6 games left in the regular season. I'm looking at a playoffs that I don't know how anyone wants to make the argument outside of blind loyalty that this is going to go very far. He's part of the problem. Now, he could be part of the solution, but he's part of the problem, and that says it all.
Well, I'll say this. His NBA Top Shot value right now is probably bottom low, but for people who like to buy
I can
stocks,
tell you.
when people like to buy stocks when they're at the bottom, now's the time to do that. And all you got to do is go to lockedon.nbatopshot.com to buy that Wiggins NFT if you still believe in him. And that's not all you could buy, obviously. NBA Top Shot is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. Connect with a passionate community of NBA fans across the globe and build your collection with your favorite moments from NBA history. It's the future of what being an NBA fan looks like. It's part trading cards, part stock market, and part fantasy sports. So I like to look at it as the cryptocurrency of the modern NBA trading card. I don't know if that's accurate, but
right.
And they're super easy to buy. They're super easy to sell. You could trade them. All you got to do is just go to the website. And again, you can see the valuations in real time. It's really fun. They've got a top flight investor group in it. And again, with NFTs and cards like these, you got the blockchain coding. So it's not like you're just downloading some GIF or a JPEG from the internet. These are yours to own, and there is coding to confirm that. All you have to do is go to lockedon.nbatopshot.com to start building your collection today.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. So I want to bring up the silver lining, which is it's not Steve Kerr ejecting himself at halftime. Kudos to you, sir, for bouncing out early and getting back home. That was a brilliant move. I know coaches like to do that sometimes to fire up their team. I honestly don't know whether he legitimately was upset or if that was just some sort of coaching tactic, or maybe he just wanted to get out of Dodge. I have no idea. But whatever it was, I respect it. But what the silver lining to me wasn't anything to do with the game itself. It was to do with this cocky, brash Memphis Grizzlies team deciding to give this Warriors team a tremendous amount of fuel if, and we do have to say if, the Warriors make the playoffs. Because right now, you're right. They look horrible. I'm going to still have faith in, and again, the big three coming back at the right time. I guess, look, on paper, this Warriors team looks awful. It looks absolutely awful. But Dieter,
what's going on the court? If it looks bad on paper, what's happening on the court?
What's up?
If it looks bad on paper, what's it doing on the court? Because I thought it looked okay on paper. It looks terrible on the court. That's the problem.
Awful. But again, Stephen Curry's out. Clay wasn't even playing last night. Otto Porter Jr., who's become a vitally important piece of this team, not playing last night. Draymond again is out. So I can't judge last night's game. You're right, though. This young squad went into Miami, but all of a sudden the Miami Heat aren't necessarily the greatest barometer for how successful you are because they're collapsing themselves right before our eyes. But if the Warriors play, I mean, that collapse might be a strong word, but they're not doing great. If the Warriors play this Grizzlies team in the second round, here's what's going to be on the walls of the locker room inside Chase Center, which is Jaren Jackson Jr. tweeting this. And again, why would you do this? Strength in numbers. This is going on the wall of Chase Center.
Fantastic.
This might be coming with the team to Memphis. You poked and prodded the bear, a sleeping, injured, lackadaisical, uninterested, unengaged, borderline 1 foot out the door bear. And now all of a sudden this Warriors team's going, excuse me? What is this guy doing? And then I also have to play. What's up?
No, I just said, yeah.
Yeah. And on top of that, and I got to share one other thing. This was Dylan Brooks after the game. And this guy says quietly, I mean, last year I was kind of mentioning that he's sneakily going into Warriors in Dub Nation as public enemy number one. Mm-hmm. He is not a shy individual. And this was Dylan Brooks talking to the press after the game about Andre Igoudala and the Warriors.
Just being here in this moment, looking back to that moment, what you think about how this team has developed?
Developed a lot. And we all had the vision and he didn't, which is perfect. You know, send him back to the Warriors and let him, you know, do his thing over there. But, you know, we were, from the beginning, you know, we were growing a base. We had a base and we just kept building and building and building. And more guys got on the train and we were able to, you know, create something like this and, you know, keep building this dynasty.
Dynasty? Did you just use the word dynasty for a team that's never won anything? That's interesting. It's brash. It's cocky. And again, it's one thing to have that confidence. I respect that. But it's another thing when you're pointedly fingering opposing players, and especially a team that still has three players who could maybe have some prime left in them. Mm-hmm. I don't know, man. All I saw was bulletin board material, and I loved it. And it woke up the fan in me. I mean, and that's why I feel a little reinvigorated. It's like, someone who loves this team, if I'm feeling pumped up from that, we saw The Last Dance. We saw how players look at every negative piece of criticism levied toward them and use that as fuel for motivation. The Grizzlies are using Andre Igoudala for that. But again, a player not wanting to play somewhere when they got traded there without request, I mean, that's a little different than, I don't know. What do you think? What are your thoughts as the more objective voice here?
I think that they are fully justified in saying whatever it is they want to say. They have whooped the Warriors' ass a couple of times now. They knocked them out of last year's play-in tournament. That is a team that is formidable. And part of that formidability is they talk it. And I think that Warriors fans in particular, one, you got to respect it. Anyone who wants to go in and bitch and whine and complain about, oh, they're talking about a dynasty, this and that, like, you're just deflecting. You're just trying to avoid looking internally at your own squad and realizing they ain't no dynasty either. Not anymore. They were, not anymore. And it's not to say that, not to say that the Warriors couldn't beat them, but they wouldn't be favored in a series, not with the way they're playing. Maybe not even if they were coming in hot. Even if they go hot, maybe they wouldn't be favored. They'd still be a lower seed. They still wouldn't have home court advantage. And Memphis has had their number in a variety of different ways. Now, I would love it if this woke the Warriors up, but I don't think necessarily the Warriors' problems are they're not trying hard enough. I really don't. I think their problems are physical. I think their problems are structural. And by the way, the Warriors, there's no guarantee they're playing Memphis in the second round. Not only because, hey, they might not win their first round series, but also because their first round series might line them up with the Suns on the bracket, the way that they're going. True. They're a game and a half up on the 4 seed. So, and right now, you got Phoenix coming up tomorrow. You got Utah coming up this weekend. I mean, thank goodness they end with Sacramento, Lakers, San Antonio, who's hot, by the way, and New Orleans. Like, how many wins are in there? 2? Dieter, what's to say they're not going to fall to the 4?
I'm going to jump on that and say the Warriors are not set at the 4 or 5 seed even. They could fall to 6.
Yeah, that'd be tough, but you're right. You're right.
It's crazy. No, you're right, man. It's a
3-game difference that would require, like, Utah's lost 4 straight. The Warriors are up 2.5 games on Utah. I'm not seeing good vibes out of Utah. Like it requires all three parties beneath them to rise at the same time. And I'm pretty sure there's a couple cross games and the Warriors to keep sinking like a ship. And so that doesn't have, any sides. Maybe most ships usually float. I'm not going all doomsday here. It doesn't really matter all that much, but it's just something to remember that there's no they'll play Memphis in the second round. Maybe not. Maybe they won't for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with Memphis. So Memphis should talk that talk. They are a wonderful encapsulation of the city of Memphis, which is bold and brash and doesn't take anything from anybody and sees themselves as the epicenter of the world, even though it's Memphis, Tennessee. And I deeply respect it. Good on them. I think Warriors fans have a bit of, there might be some resentment there because the Warriors didn't do this in 2014, 2015. They did not talk it. Now, Draymond might have talked it a little bit, but Steph certainly did not. Clay doesn't in general.
And Trey was never pointedly making comments like
no,
this.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
But the first time the Warriors really did this, they got burnt. I mean, the first time, I guess they got through in 2016, Russell Westbrook comments. But what happened in 2016 when, Clay said this is a man's game and kind of doing that stuff when they kind of got into it a little bit after winning a championship, that kind of came back and bit them in the ass. And they really have not been, well, they have been brash, no question about it, or they were brash during the 5-year stretch. You can't argue that the Warriors didn't talk that talk. They weren't as pointed. But the Memphis Iguodala thing, I think that we from the outside don't fully recognize how annoyed the city of Memphis, the organization, and the players who were on that team that were trying to build something, how annoyed they were with Iguodala because they thought that they were building something. They thought that something was happening. And honestly, Andre Igoudala just saying, nah, that's a scrub team. I'm not playing for him. Send me to Miami, do something. But I'm just not even going to show up. I'm going to hang out in Alameda all day. That was the impetus.
Which is what he did, by the way. Which is what he did.
Exactly what he did. And that was so much of a forging point for that Grizzlies team. Everything has been predicated since then, whether they want to admit it or not. But it's brought up so much in quotes and beyond just the Warriors game. It's brought up so much this champion guy who could have fit in great here, just didn't even want to hang out with us. And we are now going to do everything in our power to kill him. And we will never forget that slight.
Yeah.
I got nothing but respect for the pettiness because Andre was in the wrong. It was unprofessional, fully unprofessional thing to do. And if we ever get into a damn locker room and Andre Igoudala wants to take umbrage with that, be happy to tell him that it's unprofessional to not show up to work and still take the paycheck because you weren't injured. You got traded to the team. Hey man, is that ideal? Hell no. I know it wasn't your choice. Also be a damn professional. That's part of the game. And this is one of the big reasons that the NBA has problems right now expanding and continuing that momentum it had during the Warriors years is because there is a lot of unprofessionalism out there. Yep. And Andre Igoudala isn't the first person to do it. He won't be the last. He hasn't been the last person to do it. But that unprofessionalism that I don't have to play by the rules or the basic rules of engagement regarding this business, but I still will reap all the rewards, that doesn't jive with people who actually work for a living. We would all love to take a sabbatical that we've just decided we're going to take and you get to pay us. That's just not how the world works. And people cannot relate to something like that. Memphis, their entire ethos as a town, as a basketball team is punch you in the throat and laugh while doing it. And Andre Igoudala, he messed up. You want to talk about poking the bear? He poked the bear a long time ago. And
yeah, I want to, when we come back, I do want to push back just a little bit. I think you're 95% right. I want to push back just a little bit. But talking about Memphis, if you want to buy a house there, it's cheap. You just got to save a little money. And we got a couple ways you can save money. First off, TrueBill. This is an app. I downloaded it as well. I know you said you did. How much did you save over the year? Do you remember the total?
It's too much to admit. I don't want to talk about it.
Mine calculated at $1,100 for the year.
Damn!
I finally did it, and I was ashamed, and I couldn't believe I was just wasting that much money. Yeah. And folks, you all might be doing that too. Like, do you know why free trials renew without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you, whether it's
Bamboozled.
Netflix subscriptions, whether it's those Amazon subscriptions that you don't even are aware of subscribing to. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take advantage of your subscriptions. It's a new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forget about. Do you remember what subscriptions you were signed up for that you don't even remember?
Dude, so many. Like there,
No,
so
it was
many.
ridiculous.
It
I
was
had
bad.
two
There was like a Euro Sport subscription. It's like I never even used that. All the ways that I would try to watch something on TV through the internet, just I got. The NFL was charging me twice for Game Pass. I had 2 different accounts there. Don't even start me with the Pro Football Focus. That scam operation. Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad that it convinced me that I should just get a new credit card so that I would have to sort of transfer everything over. I would have to manually choose yes or no. So thank you, TrueBill, for showing that your boy wasn't on top of his X's and O's.
Absolutely. And thank you, TrueBill, for letting me know I had 2 Disney Plus subscriptions among a million
Good to
things.
know.
On average, people save up to $720 a year with TrueBill. Don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now, truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. And today's show is also brought to you by another money saver, Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain parts auto store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure those often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning like, is your Odyssey an LX or an EX? And wait while that person behind the counter, not to mention you're probably sitting in line with people in front and behind you, thinking the world is fine and not respecting that 6-foot boundary, breathing on your neck, bothering you silly. You have to sit there, wait for the person behind the counter to look on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry. You don't have to deal with any of that by simply going to Rock Auto. All you need is a computer or a mobile device. It's rockauto.com. You can save time and money. Why choose to save 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? An example being a Honda Odyssey fuel pump, $353 from a chain store, just $216 from Rock Auto. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Just go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Dieter Kurtenbach on Twitter at Dieter. You can follow me on Twitter, Officer Frocho. My one pushback, and I think you're what you're talking about regarding Andre Igoudala is player empowerment and how players just have taken so much control in terms of where they want to play. They don't respect contracts, which by itself is not professional. I totally get it. The only thing I'll push back with Andre Igoudala on is he was 35, 36 years old. He had 1 year left on his contract, I believe. And the Memphis Grizzlies let him go. Like, it's not like they pushed back and were like, no, we want you to honor your contract. They were like, well, fine, great. We'll happily respect that.
There was a long conversation about that though, Cyrus. Like it was not happily Andre Igoudala, there was a lot going on there. That dragged out.
Interesting.
I mean, it was to the point where he technically held out from training camp. Like they expected him to be there and he didn't show up. And they eventually came to the conclusion of he's not going to show up. We better figure out a way to do it. And I think he gave back some money, but I don't think he gave back all the money. I don't know the full details, but I can tell you factually that it was not some happy-go-lucky Memphis Grizzlies said, "Oh, you don't need to show up. It's okay. Like this is good for us." They wanted him there. They traded for the player. They wanted him there, and he said that he wasn't going to do it, and it dragged out because Memphis rightly said, "Okay, well, whenever you get this feeling out of your chest, show up to work." And Andre Igoudala said, that ain't going to happen. And
I didn't know it dragged. Like all I read was just that. And again, I will happily admit I did not do my research on this story.
No,
so
okay.
all all I had read is that that he just didn't want to, and the team was like, all right, that's cool. Then we'll just find a trade partner, but you got to sit in the Bay Area and collect money while we do that. Which in and of itself sounds silly.
That is not my understanding of the situation. They did eventually come to an agreement that he wasn't going to show up, but it was not it was not achieved easily. Let's put it that way.
That's fair. So, and again, but this was like almost 3 years ago. It is kind of crazy they still hold on to that. I mean, Andre is what, like an old man, 39. I want to play this attribution though. Andre Igoudala did play for the first time, and I lost track how long.
Oh my God,
and
good call.
And it was weird in the post-game press conference that he was standing. I mean, was this like an old man move? Is that how you interpreted this?
Hey man, standing desks are important. I should probably do the show standing.
Fair.
That's what I should have done in honor of Andre Igoudala.
That's fair. Well, here was Andre talking about the lack of effort. And I do think that this team, while granted without Steph, without Dre, without Clay, is nowhere near the team they are when they have the big three with them. There's also, you could just see it. I mean, the eye test does show that there's just no energy on this court. And this is where Wiggins, I feel like, is very culpable, because I'm not blaming Jordan Poole for any of that. Jordan Poole is giving his best night in, night out. You can't say the same about Andrew Wiggins at all. But this was Wiggins talking about that, and he made some great points here.
No, I think it's just the intent. And like I said before, the intent now is the games become more of a pickup. You know, it's just I'll score, you score, I score, you score. And it's like, we don't get mad anymore when someone scores on us. You know, like that's the true essence of basketball, is competing. And it's like, I don't want you to score. And obviously this is a scores league, you know, and I know that more than anyone because I'm a defender, but it's just like, I'm gonna make you work as hard as possible to get a bucket. And we want you to get your weak spots. And it's like, we're getting away from the nuances on defense to, you know, you got guys, you know, Melton's just an amazing shooter in transition. He's been doing it well for all year. He's been playing well. And then Bane's been doing it as well, attacking or shooting a three. So you're trying to take that away from guys and then you let them get to it. It's like you're not paying attention to detail. And that's just something that the art of the game is slowly but surely fading away. And we got to figure out a way to bring that back.
Yeah, and you know, and who knows, man? Maybe I am just being delusional here and thinking that things could turn around. I could be. I don't know. I do feel strong though that
it's not impossible. I don't think it's a ridiculous concept at all. Like, I maintain the possibility that it could just click. But along those same lines, real fast, like, you know what no one said lately, and it used to be said all the time? Flip the switch. Remember flip the switch? They used to say flip the switch like all season. Like, oh, we'll flip the switch. We'll flip the switch. I haven't heard anybody say flip the switch because I'm not sure that the switch is wired. Like, and that's where I'm at. Like, that's the problem. Like, it would be great if I just felt like, hey, man, they can turn it on. They absolutely could. When we've seen 11 minutes of it this season, where Clay and Steph and Draymond are out there, and Andrew Wiggins doesn't have to do a damn thing except stand in the corner and maybe sometimes dunk it. And Jordan Poole might be out there. Maybe it's Jonathan Kuminga, whoever that fourth person, maybe it's Kevon Looney, but that fourth person is in a really good spot. It's called, you know, the dictation of the game sort of picks who that is. There are moments where you go, oh yeah, but they are been fleeting at best. And this team does not have a good baseline for when Steph comes back. This team doesn't have the Klay Thompson that it needed. This team doesn't have the Draymond Green that it needs. This team's terrible on defense, and Draymond Green is playing. That is not a good formula whatsoever. And maybe it changes overnight, but that doesn't seem like something that that just flips. That seems like something that's gradual development, and they don't have enough time. And then, oh yeah, Wiggins.
And and the one game I think back to, and this was like a week and a half ago when I believe it was Steph's last full game. Yeah. I think it was Draymond's first full game back. And Steph just lit it up, right? He had a monster game that night. The Warriors won. And that's where I still have faith that when you have a team with this many veterans who have gone through the wars that they have, I'm gonna hold out hope that the circuitry in that switch has not gone bad. I'm hoping, because I see what you're saying. I totally understand the metaphor.
And I see what you're saying too, because I've just seen it firsthand too many times where this team, even battered, even bruised, they have that championship pedigree. They understand what it takes to win in the playoffs, and they can just turn it on in a way that I've never seen another team turn it on. But we're now multiple years removed from the last time they did that, and these are different players. For better, in maybe the case of Steph Curry, and for worse, in the case of Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, at least right now. And I have to maintain, some percentage of possibility there. But I'm not in with Vegas right now, who says that they have the fourth best title odds. I would say that they might have the fourth best title odds in the Western Conference if I didn't know deep down that they could just do it the way that they did it against Portland in the Western Conference Finals in 2019. I remember that. You think, oh man, this might be a series, and they just decided, nah, we're going to rip your heart out in the fourth quarter of each of these games. I have to remember that. At the same time, man, Western Conference a lot tougher than when the Blazers were the other team in the Western Conference Finals. So a lot of forces working against Golden State right now. If they want to do something, now would be a good time to hint at it.
I can't even tell you right now who I would pick to win the world title. Who are your favorites? I mean, I almost see the Suns and
Phoenix.
Bucks. I mean, what, Phoenix?
Yeah, I think it'd be Phoenix.
all
I
the
was
metrics
in on
indicated.
Boston, you know that, and the Time Lord.
What a shame, man.
I don't think it's Boston anymore, though. I think it'll probably be Boston, and maybe I'm not in on Philly. I just don't trust James Harden in big moments.
Same.
Milwaukee
the moment
is,
I was there, and then
I know, and then Milwaukee is just too shallow for me. I'm a little concerned about that. So I'm not in on the Bucks. I just don't like their depth. I'd like to know that they have 8 guys that they can trust. It seems like they got 6, and Brooklyn is not that good of a team, but they have the dude. I mean, they have the dudes. I don't think they can win without Ben Simmons. It's going to be it's going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was a surprise. Maybe it is Philly that comes out of the East, just because it's going to be a slog 'em, punch it out situation. And man, I wish Miami's in there too. That's really tough. But I think whoever wins the West is far and away the favorite to win the title. Like, I just don't see an Eastern Conference team winning the championship, but that's just me.
Agreed.
I'll probably
I do
renege
think you
in
and I
about
both
2
agree
weeks.
that we're excited for the playoffs, right? I mean,
Ooh.
I'm so excited. I like, this is the insane positive of parity officially being a real thing in the NBA, is that the first round is going to be thrilling. Like, every series potentially is going to be just a show. It's just going to be just showtime.
Cyrus,
it's fantastic.
think about how crazy the play-in tournament is going to be.
Yes,
bonkers.
That the Lakers might not be a part of.
The NBA will do everything in their power to ensure that the Lakers get one game, because those play-in tournaments the play-in tournament games do numbers, because it's the only thing on. Like, that's sorry, San Antonio, you got to lose your final game. Like, Warriors get one win, because there's no way that they're going to let the Warriors lose to San Antonio in San Antonio on the 9th of April. There's just no way. Greg Popovich is going to have to take one for the team, for Team Adam Silver there.
Oh, Scott Foster's calling that game, that's for sure. Dieter, we got one more show with you, and then you're going to abandon me for a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks. When do you come back? April 10th? Is that right?
Yeah, I'll be back for the playoffs. However,
all right. So Dub Nation will have to deal with me next week, and we got one more show tomorrow, though, and we're going to make it a great one. Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Dieter Kurtenbach and I will be back tomorrow to preview the Suns game.
Yep.
Talk more amazing positives. Yay about this team. No, it is not easy finding positives right now. I'll say that.
That's true.
Now make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes, free and available wherever you get podcasts, just like us. Dieter Kurtenbach is on Twitter. Great content there, sir. @Dieter. You can follow me on Twitter, Cyrus Saatsaz, @DocSurfRoadshow, and this program on Twitter @LockedOnDubs. Always a pleasure, Dieter. See you tomorrow, my man.
See you tomorrow.